Galimera, Galispera, Galinichta, no matter where in this wild, wacky, and sometimes wonderful world you might be. Thank you for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. Caught you with your pants down. We don't usually go out at 6 o'clock, but when you have Tom Canton around, you go whatever. Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad. Out of practice, Tom. I hit the trailer before I even finished my sentence. I don't know what it is with you. Even when we pre-recorded the scapegoat episode with you and Kev, my fingers, my buttons, I was all over the place on that one too. But hello, Tom Canton. Welcome to Squad Central.
How we doing? We good?
Doing good. I lose my manners when Super Kev isn't here. At ease, squaddies, at ease. Wow, feels really weird doing a show. It's 10 o'clock my time, 6 o'clock your time. It's Friday evening. It's been a long week. How has your week been, Mr. Canton, before we get stuck in here?
Yeah, not bad. Draining, actually. I feel tired. I feel like this week has really drained me with deadline day and obviously Tuesday night game as well. So, yeah, a couple of late nights and yeah, it doesn't get any easier because we've got a massive game this weekend. So, yeah.
Just a tad, just a tiny. Good evening, Lynn. Welcome. Galispera to you, PW. I know, what is this timetable? Listen, it's a little all over the place right now. Coming back, doing 6 o'clock shows, doing 8 and 10 o'clock shows, trying to find a happy medium for you. So those listening on replay, thank you so much. And to those listening on our audio platform as well, appreciate you. Carol is here as well. Matt is here. Runs with Cows is here. For those who are here live, thank you for joining. Super Tom, it's been a bit of a boring January transfer window. Should we just get this bit out the way, because I do want to get stuck into the big game this weekend. People are talking about marks out of 10. I don't even know if you can give any marks out of 10 for what has been probably the most boring January transfer window in the history of the Premier League. Forget what you think Mikel or Edu may not have done. Also, with regards to financial fair play and what that has done to the Arsenal. A lot of fans thinking that the Havertz and Raya deals, Tom, have hampered what we could have done in January. The striker position, one that everyone's crying out for, not resolved once again. Talk me through January. Was it as boring for you as it was for the universe?
Yeah, no, it was pretty bad. And for someone who does the show every single day at 8 a.m. try and talk about transfers, it's been it's been something of a struggle. On the point of Arsenal signing players in the summer like Raya and Havertz, take my word for it, it wouldn't have made a difference, because if it wasn't them, it would have been someone else that we signed, and so therefore we still wouldn't have had the financial freedom this January to bring players in. So it's nothing to do with Havertz or Raya. Those, as I say, if we wanted a goalkeeper, we got one. We wanted to bring in another attacking option, we did that in Havertz. If it wasn't them, it would have been someone else, and so therefore January wouldn't have been used to spend. And to be honest, clubs shouldn't be going into the January window as a title challenger and it being a necessity that we sign somebody in January. January is there purely as something of an escape, something of an emergency if you need it. And Arsenal obviously last January used that opportunity to do business that they felt they couldn't do in the summer, and they didn't complete their business in the way that they wanted in the previous summer. We actually did. We signed the players we wanted to sign. We didn't want to do any more business than we did in the summer of 2023. And it sucks that one of the key investments of £38 million into Jurriën Timber has been lost over the course of the campaign. Thomas Partey has, of course, been missing for the entirety of the season pretty much, and has had, sadly, another setback from the sounds of things as well.
Yeah.
And so therefore, January, if anything, was going to be used to get somebody on loan. But for a club like Arsenal that are in a title race, to find a player of the requisite quality on loan is
what Lone Star's saying here, Tom. Who would we sign that will make us better?
And the loan is the only thing that we could have really done. And I don't know who you get on loan that's going to make us better, to be honest. So, yeah.
Let me reverse this a little bit then. So I don't think a lot of sensible Arsenal fans were expecting this mass, purchasing going on in January. Maybe a loan deal if it made sense. Difficult, like you said, to find players. And when you see that no other top club has really enhanced their squad, maybe Tottenham are the ones that have been the most active of the
Yeah.
top six this January. What about the Deadwood? You and I have done plenty of shows. By the way, we didn't do Spend Stick Sell because there was nothing to talk about, in my opinion.
Uh,
So, uh, what about the players that were there, the Deadwood? For those who don't know, and for our listeners who don't know, there's news on Cedric, of course. Lokonga's doing great at Luton. Patino. What about the other stuff, the loanies, Tom, and also the players that we've been trying to get rid of for a while now?
Yeah, I mean, if you compare our squad to from now to 2 years ago, the Deadwood is a far smaller proportion, far, far smaller. And we've obviously worked very hard to overhaul the group. And it is really just kind of Cedric. You look at, yes, there's other players, maybe like Mohamed El Neni that people look at, who's obviously had been away with Egypt to the African Cup of Nations, but his contract expires at the end of the season, as does Cedric's. And there had been hope that maybe Cedric would be moved on, but there hasn't been the interest, the forthcoming offers for him. There's been interest from Spain and Turkey. The Spanish window is obviously closed. The Turkish window is still open until I think the 9th of February. So who knows? Maybe something will happen. Galatasaray were interested, but they've just signed Serge Aurier. Besiktas also are interested, but they've signed another Scandinavian fullback called Svensson. So I don't think they'll come in for Cedric either. And he'll, I imagine, leave at the end of the season on a free. We obviously moved on a lot of young players in the youth team, some permanently, some on loan. Lino Souza has joined Aston Villa permanently. Bradley Ibrahim's gone to Hertha Berlin permanently. We cancelled Runnisson's contract, and he's now gone to Copenhagen on a free transfer as well. And Miguel Aziz has left for Atletico Baleares, who are a team I've never heard of in a third tier of Spanish football. He's gone there. And then we've sent some players out on loan, like Sago Jr. has gone to Swansea, Keon Edwards has gone to Leyton Orient, and there's one other that I'm forgetting. Omar Rekic has gone to Servette today as well. So a few players on loan. Zaymon Lou's gone to Reading, another loanee. Marquinhos could still leave, but the Brazilian window is open till March. But yeah, we don't have like the Deadwood. You think back in the day when we had the Mustafis, the Kolasinacs, the Socrates, if that pronunciation is good for you.
Do the second name. I like how you always just go for Socrates.
Yes, because I can't do the other part. Papaspadopoulos would be my best attempt. But yes, we don't have this because we've overhauled things hugely since that time. And now the summer, when we sell players in the summer, it's going to be selling players that aren't Deadwood. It's going to be selling players that I would describe as financial assets. Players like Nketiah, players potentially like Aaron Ramsdale, of course, players like Emile Smith Rowe, maybe Reece Nelson, of course. These players should get us transfer fees, and we weren't able to do that in this January.
So, just to clarify, in your humble opinion, in terms of how the Arsenal universe reacts sometimes when most of fans, I'm going to say, haven't seen a lot of those academy players play, or those young players play, players that have come in from all corners of the earth, Super Tom. Have we made any mistakes? Is there anything that you're peeved about in terms of what's gone out and who's gone out on loan or who's gone out on a permanent move?
I think it's really sad that Lino Souza's gone because he's a really talented player. He's not close to being, as I mean, Boyd Tendio says is not factual at all about Kivior. Kivior is significantly better than Lino Souza, even though he's playing out of position. Lino Souza is an exciting young 19-year-old fullback who came from West Brom, and so he's going back to the Black Country where he, of course, was in around. I don't know if he's a Villa fan, but it would make sense why he's gone back there. But he outgrew the under 21s or the youth side things quite quickly. And Arsenal overall, not just with Souza, but they haven't been proactive enough in getting some of the young players loans fast enough. Lino Souza probably should have been going on loan this season. Keon Edwards should have probably gone on loan at the start of the season. Some of these players should have gone on loan sooner. We have had an overhaul of the loan system. We've changed our loan manager. Ben Napper left, and we've replaced him. And so there's still, I suppose, some bedding in process that needs to happen. But we need to get better with our loan systems and our youth players, and we need to give them more opportunities. I think that it's a myth that Arteta doesn't give youth a chance, but he definitely has a weakness there that he needs to improve. And I think Alex on the Different Knock did a fantastic video the other day on his channel, rounding it up in plenty of detail. I had him on TGT to talk about this as a topic. And whilst Arteta's use of youth is underrated, say that 10 times when you're drunk. I think that ultimately the absolutes of he's terrible with young players is obviously not true, but he does need to be better and give more opportunities to young players when those opportunities arise.
All right. Let's watch this space. And this summer's going to be very interesting. Another potentially evolutionary moment for the club. And let's see where we land at the end of this season as well. Speaking of young players, we've got a massive match this weekend. And part of why I wanted to talk to you today, I'm not going crazy. You were the one that wrote you wrote an article on Emile Smith Rowe that I read post last match.
Because the morning after.
Yeah, the morning after, because there were some Arsenal fans that were talking about how they just couldn't see the performance. This is one of my favorite Emile Smith Rowe moments, by the way. There's a reason why I've added these photos in for those listening on audio. It's the game where Saka and Smith Rowe single-handedly destroyed Tottenham Hotspur, right? That is that match. And so you wrote this piece where you were trying to give evidence of how Smith Rowe was actually effective in that game. I don't think he lit it on fire. I think maybe he was a bit cautious. He's playing now in a system that he really isn't used to compared to the last system where he was a regular starting player under Mikel Arteta, Tom. I think this is a massive moment for him, and I think it's a massive moment for Saka. And I feel like this could be a massive moment for the Hale Enders in general against the Liverpool team, where we're trying to change the narrative. I don't even know if Reece Nelson is available right now. He seems to be a forgotten man. Saka leading the way, there's no doubt. But Emile Smith Rowe in this moment, does he get picked over Kai Havertz in this match?
I don't even know if Kai Havertz will start this match either, because obviously in the FA Cup game we started with Jorginho and Rice. At Anfield we started with Havertz and Rice, but we did quite well in the FA Cup first half. We dominated the game, created loads of chances with those two. I think Smith Rowe stood out in the first half. He was probably our best player in the first half against Nottingham Forest, and I think the article that I put together showcased the things that people somehow just missed. And it was really odd because I put that tweet out at full time saying Smith Rowe starts and Smith Rowe delivers. I think he had a great game. And obviously there's context for that. This is his first start since October, his second start of a Premier League season. So to have the performance that he had, I think in the context was great. Is it great in the context of, Bukayo Saka or Martin Odegaard? No, I'd say it would be that's what I expect of those two, that type of performance. But in the context of Smith Rowe, I would say that's great to see him being that influential in a game. And so it was frustrating to see so many people say, "Oh, I didn't really see what he did, or he wasn't good, or he was worse." What some people choose the words they use in the worst types of context. But I think that the expectation that we would start against Liverpool is a big one. It would be a big risk of Arteta to do that. I think he'll be a little bit more subdued in his selection and go with Jorginho and Rice the same as he did in the FA Cup. Partey's not going to be fit and available, and so therefore I don't expect Smith Rowe to start, but he could come off the bench and play. He's just obviously been hampered significantly by injuries. But what I hope that game did is put to bed the whole Arteta hates Smith Rowe, because I remember the days when apparently Arteta hated Martinelli as well, when he wasn't getting minutes either. So he doesn't hate these players at all. He's just always sometimes too much, but so blinkered to always want to try and play the best team for as long as feasibly possible to get the best result, which I empathise with, but think sometimes you can be a little bit more malleable.
I feel like seeing as some of those things haven't been working in midfield as much this season, Tom, and I say that loosely because I'm sure you're going to throw a bunch of data at me, like you always do, and actually show and prove to me that actually it is working. But in terms of the dynamism that we were expecting, you wanted Partey to be fit to see how that Partey Rice Odegaard relationship would be. You've got Kai Havertz, who I know that some Arsenal fans don't want to hear this, but brings a versatility to be able to play certain roles, whether he's up front or in that midfield zone. And then you've got kind of like the forgotten guy like Emile Smith Rowe, who I feel is fighting back a little bit like Martinelli did post injury to prove himself, to gain the trust of Arteta again, and to be able to play and offer this team something more than another player doesn't. And there was something so magical about, when these three were actually playing together. I want to throw Martinelli into the mix. And they gave us something to smile about. Now, you need to do more in football than just smile. There's no doubt about that. And I just realized what I did without even meaning to do that, by the way, in terms of talking about smiling. But they brought a joy to the fans and they played well. They were effective. They saved us when senior players just absolutely couldn't. And I wonder that if, just because of the way things are going this season, why not roll the dice against Liverpool and play Emile Smith Rowe in this game and try to recreate some of the magic that we saw from him and from Saka and from Martinelli when they played together under the stewardship of someone like Odegaard? Why not?
Because if it doesn't work, it could be really bad. I mean, it's
really bad in terms of looking at now the Liverpool midfield that was absolutely toast earlier on this season and now is supposedly one of the best in Europe again. Why? Explain.
Because I think that if you throw Smith Rowe into this game and say Liverpool do overrun us in midfield and are able to transit, they've got Trent's obviously back fit, Robertson's back as well. They're going to be very good on the transition when they need to be, as they are, and the quickness of how they get the ball from one end of the field to the other is unlike any other team in the Premier League, more so even the Man City. So if you play Smith Rowe, his deficiencies are defensive. Smith Rowe is really good at driving the ball forwards, getting the ball into the box, creating things, making stuff happen, but can be somewhat languid when the opposition have the ball, and especially on a turnover. Now, I think Havertz is slightly better. Actually, I think he's a lot better defensively than Smith Rowe, but Havertz also can be caught upfield, like we saw in the Manchester United game when he gave the ball away, and obviously Rashford went and scored. So I think that I'd love it to be. I'd love us to be in a position where we could do it, where we could have the confidence to throw Smith Rowe, Saka, Martinelli all into the team and let them run wild against Liverpool. But the magnitude of the game, the importance of the game, the fact that Arsenal cannot lose it. Arsenal can't lose this. Yes, I think they absolutely need to win, but it's slightly perhaps more important that we don't lose this game as well. Because if we lose this game, it's done for me. Like I cannot see Arsenal winning the title if we lose this game. So I think we have to play it somewhat cautiously, but give our exciting players a foundation to do their best work. And I think that comes from Jorginho and Rice playing from the start.
So, well, Jorginho is not your best tracking back either, is he?
He sits though, doesn't he? So I don't think he's going to run.
No, I know.
I don't think he's going to burst upfield and get caught in the same way.
I actually don't think he's been terrible since he's joined us, to be honest. I don't understand. The stigma is Chelsea, of course. So I hear what you're saying. And it feels like Arteta. Are we going to approach this game the same way we did Manchester City earlier on this season, do you think?
I think so. Yeah, I think that we will. What has Arteta done this season compared to last season? He's tried to make Arsenal more resilient. He's tried to make Arsenal tougher to beat in these types of games. And that's why we've beaten Manchester United. It's why we've beaten Manchester City. It's why we went to Anfield and held that draw. It's why, despite Chelsea being terrible this season, they had the best 45 minutes of their entire campaign against us, and we still managed to come back and secure a draw at Stamford Bridge. It's why, even though we made that mistake through Jorginho, ironically, against Spurs, again, we didn't lose that game. And our record against Big Six sides this season has been good. I don't think we've lost one yet, have we, this season against a Big Six? In the league, I don't think we've lost to a Big Six. We beat a Man United, beat a Man City, drew with Liverpool, drew with Chelsea, drew with Spurs. Yeah, so we haven't lost to a Big Six team this season because Arteta's technique of trying to change what went wrong last season is to make us a team that's harder to beat. And yes, I think that Saliba and Tomiyasu's absences at the end of last season were clear. But for me, other than those injuries, the biggest reason why Arsenal didn't win the league this season is because Man City beat us twice. And they're the team that ultimately went on to win the league. And they were who we were going up against. So if you lose both games against the team that you're meant to beat to win the title, the likelihood is you're not going to do that. And so we had to change something for this season. And sadly, we've lost some of the players that we had last season, and some of the players we've added this season haven't been available for us for Arteta to, really unveil in his best way the plan that he had. But yeah, I think we will play this game similar to the Man City game. They are different. They are better on the transition than Man City are, but we need to try and frustrate them. But the biggest thing we need to do is take the bloody chances when they come to us, because that's what we didn't do in the FA Cup.
We do. And we do know that Liverpool still have vulnerabilities at the back. There's no doubt about that. Things that we can expose. I think with the speed we played with last season, less so now. And I think that's hampered the front and forward line a little bit. We're talking to Sophie Nicolaou on Monday Madness. Don't say I don't do nice things for you guys. And hopefully we'll come out of that with a win. It's always better talking to Sophie Nicolaou after we win. But one of the things he's always said is, the fear of God in Liverpool fans and players is Martinelli and Saka. And I just don't think, Tom, that we have that fear factor we did last season. Super Kev was even talking about how he felt an intimidation factor was coming back in the tunnel before, we kind of kicked off with the side. But the fear factor, I agree, and I think has gone from our game this season. I don't think Martinelli and Saka, maybe Saka more so because he's still dragging 3 or 4 players with him. But that fear factor, I don't feel as much. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Yeah, I do agree. And I think that comes to obviously the fact that we've not scored as many goals this season as we had last season. Last season, we scored more Premier League goals than we've ever scored compared to the Invincibles, compared to the double winning sides, compared to what George Graham in his early years was able to do. We scored more Premier League goals than an Arsenal with Thierry Henry, with an Arsenal with Robin van Persie, an Arsenal with Nicholas Anelka or Bergkamp. We scored more Premier League goals than all of them. And that came from Arteta's philosophy and what I would argue to be an even more competitive Premier League last season as well than we have ever really had to face. And so this season, I think it's even more competitive, which has obviously made things harder. And other teams have played differently against us. They sit back deeper. They part the bus in certain situations. And something about the confidence that we had, the momentum that we had last season has been interrupted at points. And we've not reacted as smartly as we did and as quickly as we did last season. When we dropped points, we usually were able to kind of recover pretty quickly. When we lost at Old Trafford after winning every game up until that point, we won the next game and we responded quickly. This season, we've not managed to do that. So we've had that period in the festive in December where it kind of snowballed a bit for us. And had we been more successful, I mean, if you think about the fact that if we'd beaten Fulham and beaten West Ham, we'd be top right now.
But that's why I wanted to jump on what you were talking about last season. We lost to City twice and we lost the league. Well, we also keep losing stupid games to West Ham, to Fulham, Southampton, Brighton last season. Those things are what scare me, Tom. And I put that down to mental. And we talked about that a little on Monday's show, is I still feel like we suffer from mental impotence. And that's something that we have to learn about pretty fast.
Yeah, I think it comes from the fact that obviously we've got one of the youngest teams in the league, and that haven't got that experience of winning titles. That mentality is still something that needs to be earned, deserved, grown, from within, and that in some ways comes from adding players that have already got that. When you've added Kai Havertz, who's obviously won a Champions League and scored the winning goal in the Champions League final, but it is mental sometimes, and I think those games during that festive period, yes, like we've dropped points and silly gains, but I think you're right to say that it is the mental side, because that period in December it just seemed like the heads were on the floor and they just couldn't pick them up again. So when we played Crystal Palace, the pressure that was lifted by scoring from a set piece, you could feel it in the stadium in some sense, although the noise didn't necessarily improve, just the relief that we'd scored was immense. And then we went and played against Forest, and even though they sat back deep and people maybe were a little critical of how we played because we missed some chances, I actually think that we were far more deserving of that game than we have been. I think that's the best we played at the City Ground for a long time. We hadn't won in 4 attempts at the City Ground. So certainly that mental side is still there,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's for me. It's the difference between the mental is what cost us a Champions League spot 2 seasons ago.
Mm,
Mental is what cost us the league last season because we had a good enough team and a good enough lead to win the league. And mental has cost us in this little blip here where the spotlight was on us as a title favourite. And
mm.
of course, MIKEL'S tinkered with the system. And mentally, I think some players have found it exceptionally difficult to adapt. And I feel like we may have a little bit of that weak sauce ingredient that still runs in our team. Just to wrap up this Hale End conversation real quick, what about Eddie and Reece? What's going on with Reece in particular? I know we've all said that selling Eddie isn't going to be the striker that wins you the league. I always hope, and I'm an old romantic, and you can have a pop at me, everyone, that plays like this will have an impact in Arsenal's narrative that evolves against a team like Liverpool. Eddie coming off the bench, having a super sub moment, Reece Nelson really forgotten, not getting a shot. What's your take on those two and the impact they could have in this match?
They, I'm not sure they will.
We
Yeah,
need a good subs bench here, Tom, because we're playing
yeah.
at home, and I think it's a time of no excuses. And I know this Liverpool team is better than last season, and we almost beat them, but I'm sick and tired of saying almost, almost.
Mm.
And what's at stake here in particular is at this juncture as well to be 8 points behind them is going to be insufferable,
Yeah,
and at the same
yeah,
time maybe insurmountable.
yeah. I
We
think it will
need a
be
good subs,
insurmountable.
a good subs. Talk to me about them a little bit. I know they're not like world class beaters, but something. Is there a Bournemouth moment again for Reece Nelson? Can you see that happening?
Oh, there's always the possibility. Trust me, if I could bring one of the two off the bench, it's Nelson over Nketiah. And Nketiah's record from the bench is horrific. Like
Mm.
his record of scoring from the bench is really poor. And that's the reality that needs to change in the summer is that Arsenal have to recognise that Eddie Nketiah is never going to be Arsenal's number one striker. And Eddie Nketiah is most effective when he starts games. And so therefore, if you want a number two, you have to have a striker that's got the ability to make an impact from the bench. And Eddie Nketiah has struggled to do that on a consistent basis. So of the two, I think you've got a position whereby Reece Nelson is the player that can perhaps give you something different. He came off the bench, of course, against Forest. He started the game against Liverpool in the FA Cup and I think had a decent game against Liverpool in that fixture. It's just we do lack sometimes still the depth. And that comes from the players that we're still missing in some senses as well, the injuries that we've had, and obviously the fact that this squad building is not yet complete. But you've got players like Trossard who does make an impact from the bench when he comes off it, and I think has done that. He's got a really good record against Liverpool as well from his time at Brighton, hat-trick at Anfield previously too. So I can't see Eddie Nketiah being a difference maker. I don't like being disparaging, but you have to be honest and objective about this. But of the two, Reece Nelson is more likely to give us more of something. But both of them, when it comes to the summer, probably need, well, not probably, they do need to be replaced.
I know the spotlight is always on, a lot of it is on the players, but Arteta is definitely the type of manager that doesn't mind the spotlight on him. What does he Can he outcoach Klopp in this game? And if he does, what is it that he has to do, Tom? Because we've seen, some would say in the Villa game he was outcoached by Emery. In the Newcastle game, maybe he was outcoached by Eddie Howe. There's these moments like De Zerbi
Yeah.
last season. What does he have to do as a manager to win this game?
Mm. Well, he wasn't outcoached by Eddie Howe, first of all. You know, they got exceptionally fortunate with the goal that they scored. He also wasn't outcoached by Unai Emery in that game. Again, Villa got very fortunate in that. They scored early and then Arsenal didn't take their chances. But in the end, probably should have had that goal. The handball rule is absolutely ridiculous. But Arsenal created plenty and Villa were actually quite poor. And actually Villa played into Arsenal's hands. And Arteta got the tactics of that Villa game spot on. But it's just a shame that during that festive period in December, we're not taking those opportunities. Arteta has already got Klopp's number before. We've already beaten Liverpool and Klopp at Arsenal at the Emirates. We went to Anfield last season and certainly outplayed them in the first 20 to 25 minutes when we got that 2-goal lead, but sadly couldn't hold on to it in the end. And I think that Arteta needs to learn some of his lessons from those games. He needs to understand what Liverpool do, and there is going to be a ceiling to it. There is only so much that Arteta can expect of his team and coach to his team and deliver to his team until it gets to the point where they have to put the ball in the back of the net. They have to finish the chances, because when you have, you're going into double digits in terms of chances in the first half against Liverpool, and you're not putting away the opportunities that you get, you're just asking to lose. You're asking to be punished. And so Arsenal need to avoid that. Arsenal and Arteta's philosophy and system has taken us from where we were when he took over to a team where now the expectation is that we challenge for the title. And that hasn't happened by accident. That hasn't happened with us having a poor coach. That hasn't happened with us having a coach that's not good enough. That's happened with a coach that has taken us from one place to another. And this place that we're in now is that we are expecting ourselves to beat Liverpool this weekend, as we should do, because we're at home and we have to win this game. And that comes from what we've done as a club and how we've grown as a club over the last 3.5 years to 4 years, going into his 5th full season next year. And so I've got reason to be confident. I've got reason to be optimistic about this, because I remember 4 or 5 years ago going into a team that was leading the league. We never really had any confidence at all. We just kind of expected that we would get beaten. And that's not Arsenal anymore. And that's down to Mikel Arteta.
Yeah, I definitely think that we have, to get a third win on the trot would be lovely. To beat Liverpool would be amazing. And I do think that for Mikel Arteta, though, he needs this game. He needs to show that he's a big time manager in a different way. He showed it last season with that improbable run. But, you've gone out the domestic cups. You're still in with the Premier League. You're still in the Champions League. Like this, for me, these next few months are critical for him. And look at the stock he's built up himself already without having really won anything. I did a show, Tom, talking about how he's a power player now, and whether fans want to hear that or not, I don't. I'm just delivering what his image is in the football space, and he's a power player now. So for me, this would be a real signature win for him and a signature moment for the team. I just want to read out a couple comments before we start wrapping up here with Tom. Our wingers are predictable, says Guna Rose, in their style of play. Partey's absence is a big miss in our attack. He got the ball to our attackers faster, something we don't do now. Why haven't I tuned into this show before? Great chat. Well, thank you for finding us. I think that's brilliant. Tom, we have the worst 3 up front players in front of goal, and now Mikel has just added more pressure on these front by getting a lone striker in. But I think she's talking about there's pressure and we didn't get anyone in.
Yeah.
Early goals were the key last season. We need that against Liverpool, who are playing for Klopp and the Cop. ESR had more urgency going forward. Lone Star reminding us how many goals Liverpool have scored. PW says it should be Jorginho, Rice and Odegaard versus Liverpool. Mira thinks Arteta needs to find a nice balance. Evgeny says that Smith Rowe coming on in the 65th minute would be the best move. Guna Rose says the trio played in tune, knowing each other. Next move, they were wonderful to watch, but can they recreate that now in pertaining to the Hale Enders? Do you think Arteta has been somewhat unfair with the treatment of Nelson? He's done pretty well this season when he's been given a start. Quick answer to that one, Tom, from you.
Not really, no. Reece Nelson's not going to give you much more than he has done. So, no, I don't think he's been unfair, to be honest.
Harry says we'll never know how good some of these young guns are, but we do know that so many hot prospects struggle to make the step up. I trust Mikel Arteta to give chances only to the very best. And you know what? Because Saka has been so incredibly amazing and has become a global star, I think we want every Haylender to be a Saka, and not everyone is going to be a Saka. That's for sure. So, Tom, what's your starting 11? Any surprises? Or here's what I want. I want this guy to have that type of performance, right? I want him to have an award-winning type performance. And I want Saka to have an award-winning type performance. And I want Saliba to completely dominate. Rice, I think, has been one of our most stable players this season. I don't know if it's going to be Karate Zinchenko showing up or not against Liverpool. But Odegaard, I want him to be the man in the throne and take over this game. I think it would be a signature moment for him too. Am I asking too much? No.
No, absolutely not. And, if we play with Rice and Jorginho like I think I would do, that gives Odegaard the license to be free and, not just be influential on the right-hand side, but to be influential across that front line. We need everyone to step up. And we have got the team to be able to do it, and it should be what we expect. So Raya, White, Saliba, Gabriel, Zinchenko, Jorginho, Rice, Odegaard, Saka, Jesus, and Martinelli. That is the team. That is the team that should start. And it's certainly good enough to win this game. We've gone in, as I said before. You look at the squad as it was 4 or 5 years ago going into this game. I never thought we had the squad to beat Liverpool or Manchester City during those years, and now we do. So I look forward to it.
And I look forward to him having a nice big fat steak after hopefully a Liverpool win and doing a little bit of this as well, shushing everyone once again. It feels like this team is continually having to prove itself, continually having to show itself in a different way, continually having to evolve a narrative. It always feels like it's Arsenal versus everyone, even within Arsenal and fans. We're only 5 points behind them. This is a massive match. We have to win. Can't lose. And you know what? A signature win at home and really lighting the fire under this Premier League title challenge would be amazing. And I think Liverpool deserve to be humbled a little bit now. I think they have it. They think they have it in the bag. Klopp's leaving. They're riding on a lot of emotion. That emotion becomes exhausting at some point, as we saw last season. We ran on emotion and we ended up running on empty. And hopefully we don't come up empty against Liverpool this weekend. Tom, tell everyone where they can find you. By the way, I was doing a bit on media last week and I said, I'm not going to do this segment. I'm going to do it with Tom one day. And we're going to have a little conversation about the media, not only in football, but in pop culture and the role that they play, but also fans play in this kind of phenomenon and mayhem we're living in terms of clickbait and absolute garbage reports like Barcelona and Mikel Arteta. And stuff like that. So I know you'll be willing to come back for that one.
Yeah, sure. Definitely.
Media irresponsibility is what that segment was called, Tom. But I know everyone knows where to find you. Here it is. What have you got coming up?
Of course, 8 a.m. as always, every single day. And I don't think there's any evening shows, but at the moment there will be next week. We're trying to do like a phone-in every week. I enjoy phone-ins because not only do you get to obviously speak to a lot of people that have different views to you sometimes, but it usually exposes the people in the chat boxes that are like, oh, they're going to troll you. And then we're like, well, why don't you hop on the show? And they're like, no, I don't want to.
Well, we look forward to that. And I'll be back with Stevie Nicol and Paul Buckle, former Luton Town manager. Will be around to answer your questions on Monday night. We're going to go earlier before the City game, so 7 p.m. on Monday. And look out for a potential spontaneous post-game Arsenal-Liverpool show. But I'd rather save it and talk to Stevie Nicol about it on Monday. So just made that executive decision live on air. Super Tom, thanks for your super time. Hope you have a fantastic Friday evening. And I've got a TV show for you to watch, The Offer, which is the story of the making of The Godfather. You've got to watch it. I watch it and I'm totally obsessed with it. It's with Miles Teller. And if you're a Godfather fan, are you? Have you seen The Godfather?
It's very good. Very good.
Yeah, you'll enjoy it. So that's my tip for the day. Until Monday, kids, here's the 3 points. At ease, everyone. At ease. Good night. Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.